I never thought I'd have to get a restraining order against my own parents, but that's where this story ends up. I should probably start at the beginning though, back when I still believed family meant unconditional love rather than unconditional taking. The Sunday dinner that changed everything started like any other at my parents' suburban colonial. Mum's pot roast filled the air with that familiar smell of childhood, and Dad poured drinks a little too strong while making jokes a little too pointed. My brother Clyde arrived late as usual, his wife Melissa looking tired with their 2 kids in tow. I'd brought a bottle of wine that cost more than I should have spent, still trying to impress people who had never really seen me. "Livia, there she is." My father's arms opened wide for a hug that felt more like a performance than affection. "The big shot real estate investor. How's that fancy downtown condo?" I smiled through the subtle dig. At 34, I'd finally achieved enough success to buy both my primary residence and a small investment property across town. After spending my 20s climbing out of student debt, while Clyde bounced between jobs my father had arranged for him, I'd finally found my footing. The investment property wasn't much, a modest 3-bedroom in a developing neighborhood, but it represented security I'd never had growing up, watching my parents' financial roller coaster of feast and famine. "The condo's great, Dad. The rental property is doing well too. I just finished some renovations that should increase the value." My mother emerged from the kitchen, wiping her hands on her apron. "Always about money with you, isn't it? Family comes to dinner and all you talk about is property values." I bit my tongue. I'd mentioned my property exactly once, in response to a direct question. This was our dynamic, my accomplishments minimized, my character questioned. I glanced at Clyde, who was already on his 2nd beer and avoiding eye contact. At 36, my older brother still had the demeanor of a teenager, waiting out a lecture. Dinner proceeded with the usual undercurrents. My mother asked pointed questions about my love life. Still no serious prospects? While my father steered the conversation toward Clyde's latest business idea, some venture involving cryptocurrency that he clearly didn't understand. I noticed Melissa's tight smile as she cut her children's food into smaller pieces. There was tension there I couldn't quite place. "So," Dad said, setting down his fork with purpose as dessert was served, "we wanted to talk to you about something important, Liv." The shift in his tone made my stomach tighten. I'd learned to recognize the setup, the way family discussions that were supposedly about what's best for everyone inevitably meant what was best for everyone except me. "Clyde's been having a tough time," my mother jumped in. "The startup didn't get the funding they expected, and with the kids' school expenses." I looked at my brother, who suddenly found his apple pie fascinating. "They've been staying with us for the past 2 months," my father continued. "But this house isn't really set up for a young family, not enough space." I nodded, wondering where this was going but already feeling a familiar pressure building in my chest. "We know you have that rental property," my mother said, reaching across to touch my hand in that way she did when she was about to ask for something substantial. "The one that's just sitting there making you money while you sleep." "It's not sitting there, Mom. I have tenants, a young couple who signed a lease." My father waved his hand dismissively. "Leases can be broken. There are ways around these things." "What exactly are you suggesting?" I asked, though I already knew. "We think Clyde and his family should move into your rental house," my mother said, as if announcing the most reasonable idea in the world. "They need the space, and you don't need the income. It's just extra for you. For them, it's necessity." The room fell silent. I could hear one of my nieces playing with her fork against the plate. "I can't just evict my tenants," I said finally. "That's not how it works, and I do need that income. It's part of my financial plan." "Financial plan?" my father scoffed. "Listen to you. What about family plans? Family should come first." Clyde finally spoke up. "It would just be temporary, Liv, until I get back on my feet. 6 months, maybe a year tops." "A year?" I nearly choked. "Clyde, that's not temporary. And what happens to my mortgage payment during that time? The property taxes? The insurance?" "Oh, for heaven's sake," my mother said. "Always about the money. Your brother has children." children he chose to have, I said, immediately regretting the words as Melissa's eyes flashed with hurt. My father leaned forward. What your mother is trying to say is that you're in a position to help, and Clyde isn't. It's your duty as family. He needs it more than you do. There it was, the family mandate that had shaped our dynamic since childhood. Clyde needed more, so Livia gave more. Clyde struggled, so Livia compensated. I had spent years in therapy unpacking this very pattern, learning that it wasn't my responsibility to be my brother's safety net. I'm sorry, I said firmly, I can't do that. I can help in other ways. I can look over your resume, Clyde, or connect you with some people in my network, but I'm not giving up my investment property. My mother's face hardened in a way I recognized from childhood confrontations. So, your investment is more important than making sure your niece and nephew have a stable home, more important than family. That's not fair, I started, but my father cut me off. Life isn't fair, Livia. Some of us understand sacrifice, some of us put family above money. The implication hung in the air. I was selfish, materialistic, a bad daughter and sister. The familiar shame rose within me, but alongside it came something new. Anger. I've sacrificed plenty, I said, my voice steadier than I felt. I paid my own way through college while you paid Clyde's. I've loaned him money that was never repaid. I've connected him with job opportunities he didn't follow through on. I've been supportive. But this is too much to ask. We're not asking, my father said coldly. We're telling you what needs to happen. I stood up, gathering my purse. I think I should go. That's right, my mother said. Run away from your responsibilities, just like always. I left without dessert, shaking as I drove home. The familiar patterns were closing in, the guilt, the obligation, the suggestion that my boundaries were a moral failing. But something had shifted inside me. Perhaps it was the years of therapy, or the hard-won financial security I'd built for myself, or simply the accumulation of too many such dinners. Whatever it was, I knew I couldn't give in this time. The texts started that night. My mother. I've never been so disappointed in you. My father. We raised you better than this. Clyde. Just think about it, please. The kids really need this. I didn't respond, needing time to think. The next morning, I called my therapist for an emergency session and laid it all out. What would happen, she asked, if you simply said no and held that boundary? They'd be furious, I said immediately. They'd say I was selfish, that I didn't care about family. And if that happened, if they were angry and called you names, what would actually happen to you? I sat with the question. I'd feel guilty. I'd doubt myself. But would you be harmed? Would your life fundamentally change? It was a perspective shift I needed. I'd spent so many years prioritizing my family's emotional comfort over my own well-being. What if I simply stopped? The next week was a barrage of escalating pressure. My mother called my office in tears. My father left voicemails about family duty. Clyde sent photos of my niece and nephew looking sad in my parents' guest room. Then came the flying monkeys, aunts and uncles and family friends reaching out to tell me how disappointed they were in my selfishness. I held firm in my refusal, which led to my mother showing up at my workplace unannounced. You're making a scene, I said quietly, as she stood in the reception area, loud enough for my colleagues to hear. You're tearing this family apart, she shot back. Over what? Money? A house you don't even live in? I escorted her outside, aware of curious eyes following us. Mum, I've made my decision. I'm sorry it's not what you wanted, but it's final. Nothing is final, she said with strange certainty that sent a chill through me. You'll see. 2 days later, I got a call from my property management company. Someone claiming to be me had called them asking about breaking the current lease. They were calling to confirm this was actually my request. It absolutely was not, I said, alarmed. I never called you about that. Well, whoever it was had your personal information, the manager said. They knew the property details, your social security number, everything. We only got suspicious when they couldn't answer our security questions correctly. Ice spread through my veins. I immediately changed all my passwords and placed a fraud alert on my credit. Then I called my parents' house. "What did you do?" I demanded when my father answered. "What needed to be done," he replied calmly. "If you won't take care of family, we will. By committing identity theft? By impersonating me to my property manager? That's illegal, Dad. Don't be dramatic. We're just expediting the process. Once those tenants are out, you'll thank us. Family looks out for family." I hung up, shaking with rage and disbelief. They had crossed a line so far beyond acceptable that I couldn't even process it. I called a lawyer friend that afternoon and explained the situation. "You need to document everything," she advised. "And you might want to consider a restraining order if they continue." Against my parents? The idea seemed absurd. Family or not, what they're doing is harassment and fraud. I installed security cameras at both my condo and the rental property that weekend. It felt paranoid, extreme, but something in my gut told me this wasn't over. I was right. The following Saturday morning, my phone buzzed with an alert from the rental property's security camera. Checking the feed, I watched in disbelief as my parents' car pulled into the driveway. My father, mother, and Clyde got out, followed by a man with a toolbox who I didn't recognize. I called the property manager in a panic. "Someone's at the house. I think they're trying to break in." "The tenants are out of town this weekend," he said. "I'm calling the police now." I drove to the property faster than I should have, arriving just as a police car pulled up. From my car, I could see my father talking to the man with the toolbox, who appeared to be examining the front door lock. The police officer approached them first. I got out and hurried over. "What's going on here?" the officer asked. "These people are attempting to illegally enter my property," I said, my voice shaking. My mother turned, her face a mask of righteous indignation. "This is a family matter, officer. My daughter is being difficult about helping her brother." "This is my property," I explained to the officer. "I own it. It's currently leased to tenants who are out of town, and my family is trying to break in so my brother can move in against my wishes." "That's not true," my father cut in. "This house belongs to the family. We're simply reclaiming it for family use." The officer looked between us. "I'm going to need to see some identification and proof of ownership." "I have the deed right here," I said, pulling up the digital copy on my phone. I'd anticipated needing it. My father scoffed. "A deed can be changed. This house was purchased with family money." "Actually, it wasn't," I said firmly. "I bought this property with my own money, which I earned. And there's something else you should know." I turned to the officer. "These individuals attempted to impersonate me to my property management company 2 days ago. I have documentation of that as well." The color drained from my father's face. Beside him, Clyde looked nervously at the locksmith, who was backing away from the situation. "Officer," my mother tried, her voice honeyed with the charm she'd always used to smooth over difficult situations. "This is all a misunderstanding. We're just trying to help our son and his family." "By breaking into a property you don't own?" the officer asked. "We're not breaking in," my father insisted. "We have a key." My blood ran cold. "A key? How do you have a key to my property?" My father fumbled, realizing his mistake. "From before, when you first bought it." "I changed the locks immediately after purchase," I said. "Which means if you have a key, you had it made without my knowledge or permission." The officer was taking notes now. "Sir, do you in fact have an unauthorized key to this property?" My father's bluster faltered. Beside him, my mother's expression had changed from indignation to fear. "Look," Clyde stepped forward. "This has gone too far. Dad, just tell the truth." My father shot him a warning look, but Clyde continued. "The key is a copy they had made from your condo key, Liv. Mum took it from your purse at a family dinner a few months ago and had copies made of all your keys. We thought we could just move in while your tenants were away for the weekend and you'd be forced to let us stay." I felt physically ill. "You plan to just move in without permission while the actual tenants who have a legal lease were temporarily away?" "You left us no choice," my mother cried. "Family takes care of family." The officer had heard enough. "Ma'am, sir, I'm going to have to ask you all to come down to the station to sort this out. There are serious allegations of attempted breaking and entering, possession of illegal keys, and identity theft." What followed was one of the most surreal experiences of my life. Watching my parents and brother being escorted to separate police cars. My mother wept dramatically, calling out that I was destroying the family. My father maintained stony silence. Clyde just looked defeated. I filed a formal police report and, on my lawyer's advice, sought a temporary restraining order. The evidence was overwhelming: the recorded call to my property manager, the security footage, the unauthorized keys, the witnesses. In the end, my father was charged with attempted breaking and entering and identity theft. Clyde, who ultimately cooperated with police, received probation for his role. My mother avoided criminal charges but was included in the restraining order. The family fallout was nuclear. Relatives took sides. Old friends questioned my decision to press charges against my own parents. "How could you do this to your own family?" became a refrain I heard from people who had never witnessed the years of manipulation and boundary violations. But something unexpected happened too. As word spread, I began receiving messages from cousins, old friends, even my brother's ex-girlfriends, people who had experienced similar dynamics with my parents. "They did the same thing to me," one cousin wrote. "They borrowed money from my college fund to help Clyde start a business. I never got it back." A pattern emerged of financial manipulation, emotional blackmail, and favoritism that had shaped our extended family for decades. I hadn't been the only target, just the first to say no loudly enough to break the cycle. 6 months after that Sunday dinner, I sat in a coffee shop with Melissa, who had finally left Clyde and taken the children. She had reached out, apologizing for her role in the property scheme. "I never thought it would go that far," she admitted. "Your parents kept saying you were selfish, that you owed it to the family. After a while, I started to believe it too." "That's how they operate," I said. "They rewrite reality until you doubt your own." She nodded. "Clyde's the same way now. Nothing is ever his fault. There's always someone else to blame, someone else who should be fixing his problems." She stirred her coffee. "The scary thing is, I almost can't blame him. Your parents created this. They taught him that the world owes him, that consequences don't apply to him. And that I was responsible for making his life work," I added. "Yes." She looked up. "Thank you for saying no. It sounds strange, but watching you stand your ground gave me the courage to leave, to show my kids a different way." That conversation was a turning point for me. The guilt that had plagued me began to lift. I hadn't destroyed my family by enforcing boundaries. I had exposed a dysfunction that was already destroying us from within. I still own both properties. The investment house continues to be rented to the same lovely couple who thankfully never knew how close they came to returning from vacation to find squatters in their home. I've used some of the rental income to start a small foundation that provides financial literacy education for people escaping financially abusive relationships. My relationship with my parents remains severed. The restraining order has expired, but the trust has not been rebuilt. Clyde has made overtures toward reconciliation, but always with an underlying current of, "What can you do for me?" That tells me nothing has really changed. Sometimes I wake up at night wondering if I did the right thing. In those moments, I remind myself of something my therapist told me. The family that raised you taught you that love means sacrifice, specifically, your sacrifice. But real love isn't about sacrifice. It's about respect. I'm learning what that means, building a chosen family of friends who understand boundaries and reciprocity. I'm learning that saying no isn't selfish. Sometimes it's the most honest form of self-respect. And I keep the deed to my properties in a safe deposit box now, away from the hands of those who believe family entitles them to take what isn't theirs. Because sometimes the most valuable thing on a deed isn't the property it describes, but the name of the person who earned it.